right. This is Heather Mano.
And Brooklyn Schubert.
We read Masterminds and Wingmen, helping our boys cope with schoolyard power, locker room tests, girlfriends, and the new rules of boy world.
Yeah, so the first thing that she talked about in the book was the Act Like a Man box. So this is a box that she talked to some middle school students, some middle school guys, and she asked them to tell her what qualities a ideal man would have. And she got a list of some crazy things. So they talked about this guy was funny. He has money. He's strong. He's tall. He's good with girls. He's always relaxed. He's fit. He's cut. He's good at comebacks. He has a slacker attitude. He plays sports. And he has all of these things. And like, if you're not in this box, then you get called things like you're gay, you're a girl, you're a sissy. And I think that this box is something that all male students in middle grades are kind of dealing with, and they're having to figure out where they fit into this box. And this box is not something that we want our kids in, and we don't want our students to have to feel like they have to fit into this box.
I agree. Yeah, I think the box needs to be broken down. I know this is something that I've seen in middle school boys where if they're not fitting in the box, they feel like they're inadequate or not, good enough. And I think it's important not to put any kid in a box, and because every boy is different.
Yeah.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is in the book it talks about the different roles that boys play. There's Mastermind. He's charismatic and naturally good at figuring out people's weaknesses based on what would cause the maximum amount of public humiliation. There's Associate. He pretty much just copies the Mastermind. He's very talkative, well-liked. There's the Bouncer. He's pretty much the bully in my mind. The Entertainer. He's the funny one and just tries to make people laugh. The Conscience. He worries about getting in trouble. The Punching Bag. He's the one that everybody makes fun of. The Fly is someone that just hovers around a group. It's not really a part of the group. He is seen as very annoying. And the Champion, which I think most people would want their child to be, which he's not controlled by the boy world box, but has enough of its positive characteristics that people respect. So we were talking earlier, what is one particular character that you really saw in school when you were in middle school?
Yeah, so I think the Mastermind is obviously one that we all saw when we were in middle school. There was always that jock who everyone seemed to like, but no one really liked him, and they didn't know why they liked him or why he was popular. He just was. So I think that is one that pretty much everyone sees at school. I also saw the Associate pretty much. He just, like she said, he was a lot like the Mastermind, but people liked him a lot more than they liked the Mastermind, but that's not something that they could say out loud. And I also saw the Punching Bag. He was just that kid that, in middle school, my thought was, why did they let him in the group? But now I'm thinking, why would he want to be in the group? Like, he's just getting picked on, getting pushed around. He's only there for their amusement.
Yeah, I definitely noticed those things too. And one of the things I talked to my kids about the different types of roles, and they picked out the Fly specifically because they said there was someone they were thinking about that was just like that. And it's kind of sad. I couldn't imagine someone thinking that about me, being the Fly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about is the different parenting roles that she talked about in the book. There was believer. And the believer always lets their kids talk his way out of trouble, tries to blame other kids for their kid's problem. The bear, don't mess with my kid attitude. They usually make conflicts more difficult. There's the dictator. They automatically do not trust their son's friends or their parents if they have different backgrounds. They interrogate their sons. Boys will be boys. They don't punish. They tell stories to their son's friends about dumb stuff they did as a kid. Tend to speak in slogans. Love to talk about other helicopter parents. Encourage their son to play in sports. There's the pushover. This person feels overwhelmed in the face of their son if they're angry. They feel guilty because they work too much. They don't want to acknowledge their actions, explain their son's lack of respect. There's the no excuse parents. They cause more stress on their kids. Family problems should stay within the family. Highly concerned with their place in the community. Surprised when their son messes up. There's the no privacy parent. They dismiss or laugh when son asks to stop talking about a subject. Dismiss son's anger as being oversensitive. There's the don't ask, don't tell. They don't see when their son is high or drunk or gay. They don't check on how son is doing in school. There's the last one is the glory seeker. They justify their behavior as pushing son to do their best, are capable of publicly humiliating their son. I, as a parent, kind of picked myself out as a few of these. I wasn't just one of these. I felt like, for me, I was probably the pushover parent, the believer, and the bear at some times. But I also try to see myself as what it would be like as a teacher and how we would deal with these parents in a classroom. I think, it'd be interesting to have a believer parent come in, because I don't think that it would be very easy to try to talk to them if their kid was having problems.
Yeah, I think that even when I was in middle school, you knew the kids that had that type of parent. Actually, I was in middle school, and there was a parent that came in and brought one of the teachers into the hallway and was yelling at him about something that he said that her kid did. Well, her kid actually did that, and I just can't, and I don't know how I'm going to deal with it as a teacher when I get that parent, because you can't talk to them.
Yeah, I think it'd be very difficult. I think, you probably would almost have to have backup, maybe the administrator involved if it got, volatile, for sure. I think we kind of have to prepare ourselves as teachers to deal with each, kind of parent, because, it's just definitely would be stressful to deal with some of them, like the dictator parent.
Also, I thought this was interesting. In one of my articles that I had, it was like 10 things that you need to stop telling your boys immediately. And one of them is boys will be boys. And that's one of the parents that the author talks about in our book. And in my article, it says that telling boys that boys will be boys is telling them that they're not responsible for their actions, and it sends a message that because they're boys, they cannot control their thoughts, emotions, or urges. And also, I don't know if you agree, but I think that that type of parent probably raises like a mastermind kid, because the mastermind is always like above the rules and above everyone else, and I don't know.
I agree. I think it's interesting to think about how the parenting roles probably somehow connect to the roles that those sons play in middle school. Like, I think of like the dictator parent, maybe their kid would be the bouncer, and or the pushover parent could be, I don't know, the punching bag. I think there's connections between how a parent is parenting their child and what that child is going to be like at school.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about is boys' body image and how they feel in middle school.
Yeah, so in our article, she kind of talked about body image and like how body image is something that we see as only being a thing that girls struggle with. And that's definitely not the case. Like there are always boys in middle school that think that the way they look isn't okay and that they need to, beef up or bulk up. And one of my articles that I got, or that I found, they surveyed 2,000 kids between the ages of 11 and 16 about how they feel about their bodies. And twice as many of the boys said that they would never discuss body issues with their friends. 3/4 of the boys agreed that how they looked mattered, and then 59% thought that what others thought of their bodies and how they looked was important. And so it just talked about how boys are 4 times more likely to go undiagnosed with body image issues than women are. And I think that's just because boys don't have the tendency to talk about things. They're not talking about how they feel with their friends or with their parents as girls are.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And one of the articles I found was talking about like the challenges that teens face, and it really promotes how parents should just be available and supportive and a good listener. And so did the author. She talked about that a lot, of just being that, that person that's just there to listen and not to just, constantly go like, what's wrong, but just to, just to be there and be supportive, because, being a middle schooler is very difficult, and there's a lot of things going on, and they're not going to just automatically want to come and talk to you.
Yeah, and I think that's just something that you're going to have to deal with also as a teacher. And as a teacher, I mean, we're going to see kids that are like having a bad day, and our first reaction should be, hey, what's wrong? Like, what's going on? Like, can I help you?
Right.
But guys aren't going to want to tell you. They're not going to want to just come clean about all of their issues, like.
That's not normal for them.
Yeah, that's not something that they're going to do, and that's something that we have to adjust to as teachers of males. Like, we have to adjust to the fact that they're not going to tell you what's wrong.
Yeah, but just to be there for them if they do need you.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting you brought up how the author talked about lying.
Yes, so it talked about the parent, her as a parent, she would give her kids 24 hours to tell her the truth. So if she knew that her kids were lying about something, she would give them 24 hours to come clean, and if they did, then she didn't consider it lying, so she didn't punish them for lying to her. And I think you talked about implementing that in the classroom somehow. I don't know what exactly that would look like in the classroom, but
I think it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about, how you've got to give boys time to figure out what's going on in their head and not push them. And if you're that dictator teacher, or you're trying to like control everything, I think they're just going to push against you instead of feeling safe, which is, we all know, is a big deal in a classroom, is for kids to feel safe and welcomed. And if you're constantly bombarding them with questions and are you lying, or if they're constantly in trouble, they're not going to feel that it's a safe environment.
Yeah.
The next thing that I noticed was it talked about SEAL, which is all about channeling feelings effectively. I thought this was interesting for me just because as a parent, I've noticed when my son started going in through puberty, they had a lot of anger issues. And for instance, my son would just all of a sudden throw his tablet across the floor, and it would be for no reason. It was just this burst of anger, and he really didn't know how to handle it. And of course his funniness would just say, it's puberty, Mom. So I thought this was interesting. So SEAL means stop and set up. So it means to breathe, look, listen, and think. And then you're just supposed to slow down and think, what am I really feeling? You're supposed to try to explain how you're feeling and what's making you upset, to affirm and acknowledge what's going on, and then also to lock in and decide what you should do next time. So I thought that was very important for kids to kind of figure out how to deal with their feelings.
Yeah, and that's something that we should be sharing with our kids and our students on how, and the counseling center and things like that should be like teaching this way of dealing with your anger to boys, because they don't know how to handle it, and
right.
I think that it's just going to be a process for them to try to figure it out, but I think that still will definitely help them in the long run.
Yeah, I agree. The next thing we're going to talk about is social networking, and also technology and how we can limit it in the classroom or at home, or should we limit it. One of the things I thought was interesting was, she talked about how boys really find like gaming and technology very important part of their life, and it was very much the social part of their life. But she put some pretty strong limits on her own kids. What did you think about that?
Yeah, well, at first I was kind of like, oh my gosh, like she only allows her kids to play video games for 90 minutes on the weekends. So like no video games during the week. As a kid, like I feel like I would have freaked out if my mom was like, no, you can't play the Wii at all during the week, like not even after dinner. But see, my family did a lot of like family time playing the Wii. Like we would play Monopoly on the Wii, and it was just kind of like after dinner, like that's what we did. So I don't know, like I don't think that I would enjoy that. I think that it's definitely something like you have to limit your kids on how much that they're playing video games. But I feel like 90 minutes on the weekend is a little strict.
Do you?
I do.
I actually agree with you on that. I was thinking about it too as a parent, and I do limit my kids, but especially in the weekend, I said 3 hours on each day. I thought that was okay. The only thing I took in was the fact that she was so big on making sure that each child knew the rules of what's appropriate behavior on the internet and how you handle things, and what she expects. And they even had to sign like a contract to show that they understood those rules.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I think that those need to be definitely set up front, because kids are the type of kid, like the way kids are, they're like, if you don't set up your rules at the beginning, then it's like, oh, well, that wasn't a rule. Why are you making a rule now? So, yeah, I think that that's definitely something that should be done. Like, that's a good thing that, like, parents can think about, is, like, making sure you're setting up these rules at the beginning.
Yeah, and I think you can even do that in the classroom, too.
Yeah, for sure.
The last thing we're going to talk about is middle school boys and friendships. And this is something I've also noticed with my own kids. I used to get very upset because I would be like, why are you like that with your friend? Because they would just make fun of each other and pick on each other the whole time. And he said, Mom, that's normal. That's how we are all the time. And I thought that was very interesting, and she even talked about it in the book about how boys are with each other and how you wouldn't really think they are friends, but they're really good friends, even though they're goofing off and making fun of each other the whole time.
Yeah, and I think that even ties in again with the roles that the students play, and like we from the outside looking at the student who's the punching bag, and we're like, why are you hanging out with them? Like they're not your friends. But they are.
Yeah.
And that's just like the way that
they see it,
and that they're friends, and that's just the way that they act.
I agree. And there was some articles though that did talk about how it's so important for boys to help them get through the middle school years, to have a really close friend. They might hang out with a big group of boys, but it's important for them to at least find one good friend that they can talk to and feel comfortable with. so overall that it would help them like emotionally and just in school in general, just to have that one friend.
Yeah.
All right, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.